In tonight's stories, love and obsession twist into death and damnation. A social media prankster gains a fan who follows him from the screen to the real world and proves his devotion with a fatal fall. And a man receives a haunted box of apologies from an ex-lover who's been dead for a year, her ghost writing from a place where the sky burns red. Two tales of devotion, obsession, and the horrors that love leaves behind. Welcome to Nightmare Proof, where true horror comes alive. Here, you'll hear real stories of the strange, the disturbing, and the unexplainable. Turn down the lights, get comfortable, and prepare to face the darkness. I would die for you, Kevin. Hello, everyone. My name is Kevin, and I'm going to tell you about my stalker. I'll start by letting you know, I have a niche, micro-celebrity status on Instagram. I'm not saying that to, brag or anything, no. I'm saying that because it pertains to what I'm about to lay before you. You see, I started my account a few years ago. Just pranks, vlogs, you know, the whole internet personality thing. I grew a bit of a following, and as time went on, more and more people began to know who I was. It was somewhat jarring at first, so many people knowing my name and what I looked like. I grew into it though, and eventually, I began to find comfort in the little community that I had created. I started talking with my followers, interacting with them like they were family. As the page grew, I met more and more people who I can sincerely say became genuine friends of mine. There was one guy in particular, whose name was David, and he actually became my best friend. We found out that we lived within only a couple of miles of one another, and after meeting for the first time, we created a weekly tradition of meeting at this local bar where we'd catch up and shoot the breeze. He also became somewhat of a regular guest on my Instagram page, and people seemed to love him for the thick, southern accent that he had. He and I grew the page to about 100,000 followers, and by that point, people were reaching out to us for advertisements and brand endorsements. I, for one, couldn't have been happier. We could actually make some real money from doing something we loved, and that thought warmed my soul. David, on the other hand, was a full-blown pessimist. "Call me when I don't got work in the morning," he'd always say when I spoke to him about our page's growth. "David, you do realize that if we tried hard enough at this, we could get our names out there. We could do this for a living instead of me working the cash register at Walmart and you laying concrete for money under the table." He'd sip his beer, and with a grunt, he'd spurt out, "I'm telling you, Kevin, call me when I don't got work in the morning." Whatever, right? As pessimistic as he was, he'd still go out and film videos with me. He'd be just as excited as I was to go and prank some unsuspecting Target shopper by dressing up like a mannequin before jumping out at them as they walked by. And those were the kinds of videos that really helped us grow. Just harmless pranks that would get a quick laugh out of people. Likes and comments would come flooding in, fans and haters alike. As I was sifting through the comments of a recent post of mine one day, I came across a comment that kinda had me scratching my head. "I would die for you, Kevin." It was odd because, who am I to die for, you know? I'm just some random guy on Instagram pranking people. I replied to his comment with that fact, stating, "Hey man, no one's worth dying for," followed by some laughing emojis for good measure. He responded immediately. I hadn't even had time to refresh the page before I saw it drop down from atop my phone screen. "You are!" Not knowing what else to do, I simply hearted the guy's comment. In between work and recording, I like to relax by playing some video games. I set my phone aside and started up my PS5, where I played Call of Duty for the next, 5 hours or so. After calling it a night and checking my phone one last time, I found that I had a message request from the guy from earlier. I clicked on it, and here's what it read. "Hi, Kevin. Thank you so much for responding to me and for liking my comment. I love you so much, I would literally die for you. Listen, guys, I'm a nice person, all right? I'm not someone who's just going to ignore someone who is clearly inspired by me. That being said, I responded with, "Thank you so much, man. I love you too. I'm so glad you like the content. But listen, there's no reason to die, okay? followed by some more laughing emojis. Immediately, he responded yet again with, "You are! I appreciate that, dude," I replied. He hearted the message and responded with, "So, when do you think your next video's gonna be? You think I can be in it?" This is where I got a little impatient. I'm all for friendly interaction, but when it feels like you're only being friendly to get something, that's when I draw the line. I don't know, man. Keep an eye out for the video, though. It should be up at some point tomorrow. He hearted the message again and responded with, "Whatever you say, Kevin," followed by some smiley face emojis. A little taken aback by the intensity of the guy, I exited out of our messages and went to sleep. The next day was a big day for David and me content-wise. We were both off, so we spent the entire day clip farming essentially. David's big video happened when he approached an on-duty police officer and asked if they could, and I quote, "chase him without arresting him." The cop saw that we were recording, and he must have been having a slow shift because, can you believe it? He really did chase David. Caught him too. He made it seem like it was real, even slapping his cuffs on David at one point. The look on David's face was priceless. I'm talking tears, snot, the whole shebang. The look on his face when he realized it was a joke was equally priceless. He looked as though he'd just beaten 2 life sentences. My big video came when I met up with this cow farmer whom I'd been in contact with. This guy was way out in the middle of nowhere with nothing but fields surrounding his property. And the reason I was meeting him was because he told me I could try to ride one of his bulls for a video. So, we got there, and I'm on the back of this thing holding on for dear life while it bucks and throws me all sorts of ways, all for the sake of some Instagram views. Anyway, I promise there's a point to what I'm telling you. So, when I got home that evening, I was looking through the videos I had taken that day, getting ready to chop them up into clips. As I was looking, I found something that made my spine tingle. In the background of David's video was a person, watching from a distance with what seemed to be binoculars. He had this dark brown hair and was wearing a bright red shirt with camo pants. He looked like he was watching us and taking notes, I guess. All I know is it looked like he had a notepad in one of his hands. Normally, I wouldn't have even noticed this. However, that same person appeared in my video that had been recorded at least 40 miles from David's. I immediately screenshotted the 2 videos to send them over to David. He agreed that it was, in fact, very creepy. At this point, I hadn't even considered the guy from the comments. I just figured it was some rando who decided to follow us from the city. However, that changed when I got a new message from the comment section dweller. "When's the video going up?" "There's no way," I thought to myself. I replied to him with a stern, "Dude, I gotta ask, were you following us today?" As always, he viewed the message immediately. This time, he replied angrily, "So what if I was? It's a free country. I can do whatever I want." "That's a good way to get a restraining order placed against you, my man," I responded. "Yeah, right. You have to know my name to get a restraining order, dummy. Do you seriously think this is anything more than my burner account?" That's when I reported the account and blocked him. Whether I liked it or not, those clips were interactive gold, and I couldn't just let them go to waste because of some psycho in the background. I'd just crop him out. So that's what I did. I made sure he was nowhere to be seen in the videos, and they went live. Those 2 clips alone earned David and me about 12,000 followers on the account. I waited anxiously for a new, "I would die for you, Kevin," comment to come rolling in, and fortunately, it didn't. It seemed like blocking him actually worked, and I stopped hearing from the guy for a few months. David and I continued to film regularly, and eventually, David really didn't have work in the morning. We'd made it to a point where our income combined across social media was enough to pay the bills. With that success came innovation, and our videos got better and better as time went on. One night, after I had finished editing and posting our daily clips, the comment came, "I love you so much. I would die for you, Kevin." I didn't even dignify him with a response. I simply blocked the account and went about my day. Not even an hour later, I got a new message request. "Why did you block me?" This time, I did respond. "I blocked you because you are insane. I hope this helps," he responded. Not with words, but with pictures. Pictures of pages from a notebook, filled with the things that David and I had filmed. Each entry had a date beside it, the day the videos were filmed. What made me incredibly uneasy, though, were the things that he had written down that hadn't been posted. They'd been recorded, but they were ones that David and I agreed weren't quite good enough to be posted. "I swear to God, dude, when we catch you, we are 100% turning you in to the police. Keep trying your luck. I guarantee you will regret it." Before blocking him, he got one more message through. "I told you I would die for you, Kevin." I actually had to take a break from filming after that. I took some money that I'd put aside and used it to beef up our security. I didn't want to take any chances of this guy saying "fuck it" one day and just straight up murdering David and me. Ever so cautiously, we got back into filming. We were sailing pretty smoothly for a while, without incident. That is, until February 6th, 2023. That cursed day is ingrained in my mind, like a cancer that refuses to be removed. David and I were vlogging a trip to New York while on Instagram Live. We were stopped outside the New York Times building, taking pictures and embracing the scenery. A DM notification from Instagram dropped down from atop the screen. All it read was 11.4 seconds. Confused, I swiped the notification away and continued vlogging. 11.4 seconds went by, and just as I opened my mouth to recite the outro to my life, a black mass came plummeting to the ground behind me. I turned around, quickly, to find a crumpled heap of a person, broken and battered, sprawled out across the sidewalk. He landed on his back, and on the front of his shirt was a piece of notebook paper, duct-taped to the fabric. Frantically written in Sharpie across the page were 4 words I'll never forget for as long as I live. "I told you, Kevin. My manipulative ex sent me a box full of apologies 5 years after we broke up. The problem is, she died a year ago. It's been 5 years. 5 years since I finally, painfully, and messily extracted myself from that relationship. It was one of those relationships that doesn't just end, it leaves a crater. She was my first real love, and she was a master of a quiet, insidious kind of cruelty. A manipulator of the highest order. Every argument was my fault. Every insecurity I had was a weapon she would sharpen and use against me. By the end, I was a hollowed-out, anxious wreck of a person. It took me years of therapy, of rebuilding my own self-worth from the ground up to feel even remotely normal again. I hadn't seen or spoken to her in half a decade. I thought I was free. Then, last month, the box arrived. It was a small, unassuming package in my mailbox. No return address. Just my name and address, written in a familiar, elegant, sharp cursive that I recognized instantly. A cold, heavy feeling. A ghost of an old anxiety settled in my stomach. Her handwriting. On a small cardboard tag tied to the box with a black ribbon were 7 words, also in her hand. For all the things I should have said, my first instinct was to throw it away, unopened. To just toss it in the dumpster and pretend it never came. But I couldn't. The curiosity, the morbid need for a final, long overdue sense of closure was too strong. I took it inside. The box itself was beautiful. It was a small, ornate thing, carved from a dark, heavy wood, with intricate patterns of vines and leaves winding around its sides. It felt old, ancient even. I sat at my kitchen table, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs, and I lifted the lid. Inside, the box was empty. It was lined with a deep, dark, light-absorbing velvet. There was no letter, no trinket, no explanation. Just an empty, velvet-lined box. I felt a surge of frustrated, familiar anger. Of course, even now, 5 years later, she was still playing games, sending a cryptic, beautiful, and ultimately empty gesture. It was so perfectly her. I put the box on a bookshelf in my living room, a strange, dark little monument to a past I was trying to forget, and I did my best to put it out of my mind. The next morning, I was getting ready for work. I walked past the bookshelf, and something caught my eye. There was a small, folded piece of white paper sitting in the center of the box's dark velvet lining. I froze. I knew, with an absolute certainty, that the box had been empty when I went to bed. My apartment door was locked. No one had been in. My hands were trembling as I reached for it. I unfolded the paper. On it, in that same sharp, elegant cursive, was a single sentence. "I'm sorry for making you feel small at that dinner party with your friends." I stared at the note, my mind reeling. The dinner party. It had been 7 years ago. A small gathering at a friend's apartment. She had spent the entire night, subtly, skillfully, undermining me in front of my oldest friends, making me the butt of a dozen gentle jokes that left me feeling like an idiot. I had almost forgotten about it. But the apology, it was so specific, so verbatim to the conversation we'd had in the car on the way home, where I had used those exact words. "You made me feel small." I spent the rest of the day in a daze, the note folded in my pocket, a strange hot coal against my leg. When I got home from work, I went straight to the bookshelf. There was another note. "I'm sorry for reading your journal." My blood ran cold. She had always sworn she hadn't. It had been a huge fight, a suspicion I could never prove. But here it was, a confession, a posthumous admission of guilt. I checked again an hour later. Another note. "I'm sorry for lying about where I was that night." This was the rhythm of my life for the next week. The box became an endless, automated apology machine. Every time I looked, a new note, a new folded piece of paper, a new shard of our toxic past would be waiting for me. At first, it was cathartic, validating. Every note was a confirmation that I hadn't been crazy. The gaslighting, the manipulation, it had all been real. It was like all the old wounds I had were finally being lanced, the poison drained away. "I'm sorry," I told. "Your mother, you were the one who broke her antique vase." "I'm sorry I flirted with your best friend at your birthday party." "I'm sorry I made you quit your painting class." But then, the apologies started to get darker, more intrusive. "I'm sorry for watching you while you slept. I found that one on a Saturday morning." I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature of the room. I remembered waking up sometimes, in the dead of night, with the feeling of being watched, only to see her lying beside me, her eyes closed. I had always dismissed it as a dream. "I'm sorry for putting that keylogger on your laptop." That one explained so much. The way she always seemed to know what I was thinking, who I was talking to. The way she would bring up things from private emails, pretending it was just a lucky guess. "I'm sorry I followed you to work that day you said you were sick." The box wasn't just apologizing for the things I knew about. It was revealing a secret, hidden history of stalking and violation, a level of obsession and control that I had never even suspected. The catharsis was curdling into a deep, creeping horror. It was an invasion, a reopening of a past that was far more monstrous than I had ever realized. I had to get rid of it. I took the box, my hands shaking with a mixture of fear and rage, and I threw it in the dumpster behind my apartment building. I watched it disappear under a pile of trash bags. I felt a sense of finality, of relief. The next morning, it was back on my bookshelf. It was sitting in the exact same spot, polished and pristine. And inside, a new note was waiting. "I'm sorry you tried to throw me away." Panic! A raw, frantic, animal panic began to set in. I took the box out to my small concrete patio, and I took a hammer to it. I swung with all my might. The hammerhead connected with the dark wood with a loud crack and bounced off, leaving not so much as a scratch. The wood was impossibly, unnaturally hard. The hammer, however, had a new dent in its head. The box was a part of my life now, an unmovable, unbreakable, and unending source of my past's poison. And then, the apologies started to change. They started to become predictive. One morning, a note appeared that was different. It was about the future. "I'm sorry for what the man on the bus is about to say to you." I stared at the note, a sense of profound, dizzying wrongness washing over me. An hour later, on my commute to work, the bus lurched, and a large, angry-looking man stumbled and spilled his coffee. He turned and glared at me, even though I was a full 3 feet away. "Watch where you're going, you idiot," he snarled, his voice full of a bizarre, unearned venom. The box wasn't just dredging up the past anymore. It was predicting, or maybe even causing, new negativity in my life, and then apologizing for it. The notes became a mix of past and present. "I'm sorry I dented your father's car and let you take the blame. I'm sorry for the flat tire you're going to get this afternoon. I'm sorry I told all our friends your novel was just a stupid hobby. I'm sorry your boss is going to lose that important file." It was a constant, unending stream of misery, both remembered and newly delivered. I was living in a psychic minefield, with the box as my own personal, malevolent fortune teller. I had to talk to her. I had to stop this. I dug through my old contacts, my fingers feeling like clumsy sausages, and I found her number. I hadn't deleted it. I just never looked at it. I called. It went straight to a disconnected tone. I tried her social media. Her profiles were all gone, deactivated. I was getting desperate. I called one of our old mutual friends, someone I hadn't spoken to in years. "Hey," I said, my voice shaking. "This is going to sound really, really weird, but I need to get in touch with her. It's an emergency. Do you have a new number for her?" There was a long, heavy silence on the other end of the line. Are you okay?" my old friend finally asked, his voice full of a strange, cautious concern. "Yeah, I'm fine. I really need to talk to her." Another pause. "Dude," he said, his voice soft. "She's dead. She died a year ago." The phone slipped from my hand and clattered to the floor. I just stood there, the blood roaring in my ears. Dead. She was dead. "A car accident," my friend's tinny voice continued from the floor. "It was really awful. I thought you knew. Her parents sent out an announcement." I hung up. She was dead for a year. But the box had arrived a month ago, and the notes, they were still coming. I stumbled to the bookshelf. The box was there, a dark, silent void, and inside, a new, folded note. I picked it up with a hand that was so numb I could barely feel the paper. "I'm sorry I died." My mind shattered. The last, fragile barrier between the rational world and this impossible waking nightmare dissolved completely. This wasn't a sick prank. This wasn't a final manipulative game. This was something else. Something from beyond the grave. I'm writing this now because I don't know what else to do. I am trapped. The notes haven't stopped, but they're different now. They're no longer just apologies for the life we shared. They're dispatches. Postcards from whatever hell she's in, and they are more terrifying than any of her earthly cruelties. This morning, there were 3. "I'm sorry I was thinking of you when I died. I was holding this box. That one made me physically ill." I was the last thought in her head. And somehow, in that final moment, she had tethered this thing to me. "I'm sorry the sky is red here. I'm sorry the people here don't have hearts. They just have empty spaces." The last note, the one that is sitting on my set desk right now, the one that has finally pushed me to write this, to scream into the void and pray someone has an answer, arrived an hour ago. "I'm sorry. I have to go now." The one with the smiling face is coming for me again. "I don't know what to do. I think I am tied to a ghost, and her only connection to the living world is me. The box is on my bookshelf, and I know, with a certainty that is slowly crushing the life out of me, that a new note is already waiting, and I am so afraid to read it." Thank you for watching Nightmare Proof. If you enjoyed these stories, Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share to keep the nightmares alive. Have a story of your own? Send it in, and you may hear it here next time. Until then, sleep well if you can.